Hi everyone. So let's now have a look at the various examples of where labour markets are not perfectly competitive, because in reality, of course, there will be imperfections in the labour market, and the characteristics within a perfectly competitive labour market are unlikely to be seen in the real world. Things, for instance, such as labour being homogenous, that firms are wage takers and employees have no influence over their wages. Yeah, it's frankly not going to be true most of the time in the real world. But it does help us to understand the economic sweet spot of where the market clears and supply equals demand. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So imperfections in the labour market. Labour markets are seldom perfectly competitive. Workers and firms can normally have some degree of influence over the wages that they offer. Okay, so firms can offer different levels, different types of employees, of course. Meanwhile, employees can actually be more productive so that they perform better, and then in their appraisal reviews they're likely to earn better pay rises as a direct result of that. The same job could, in theory, then be rewarded by better performance. Of course it can. Labour market imperfections cause wages to differ from the competitive equilibrium that we've seen before. Okay, so supply will not always equal demand. Okay, and we see that wherever there is a labour market imperfection. Okay, let's have a look at some of these imperfections. So first one, monopsony, or a sole buyer of labour. Okay, so when you have a sole buyer of labour, they can determine the wage rate and the employment rate within a market. So it's down to them, and they may well make sure that they employ a very, very low number of people, but they can get by on what they actually do. They may try and offer low wages as well, okay? And it makes perfect sense within the sort of notion of profit maximisation to actually pursue that point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. And we'll look at that in our next lesson. Trade unions. Okay, so if the industry is highly unionised and there's just one dominant trade union in that marketplace, then the trade union is going to have a huge amount of power to determine and bid up wage levels as well as working conditions to really benefit the employees. Okay, so that makes perfect sense. Again, our third point is about factor immobility, and really that with some jobs, yes, you are likely to see a high degree of geographical mobility, that people will be prepared to switch from different locations to work in different roles if they are very highly paid and well compensated for doing so. Okay, we see this perhaps with footballers. They're often ready to actually transfer between locations very easily. However, when you look at the lower end of the market, when you consider minimum wage level employment, people are rarely going to move geographical regions. Okay, it just simply wouldn't happen. Okay, occupational immobility is also important. That yes, there may be some industries where you can develop transferable knowledge and skills which are entirely appropriate for another given industry, but by and large, there will be some degree of occupational immobility and retraining or additional training that's actually necessary. Next point, firms may be profit maximisers. So within the theory of the firm unit, we've looked at the principal agent problem and how that can cause these managerial theories of the firm which give rise to profit satisficing. So that is where the managers of the firms really know more about the firm than the owners do, than the shareholders do, and so they do not pursue outright profit maximisation. Okay, so again, this gives us good circumstance to pursue here. Okay, asymmetric information. Well, we see this every year when the BBC releases its pay figures for its highest paid talent, and often we see that big differential between male earnings and female earnings, and of course there's a lot of disquiet there amongst the female top earners that they're not earning the same levels as many of the males there. Of course, the BBC bosses were aware of these differentials, but the female employees and no doubt the male employees didn't actually have an awareness of that. Okay, so this can also bear influence to what level of wage you actually accept. Okay, difficulties in determining productivity. Yes, well, it can be difficult to determine marginal revenue product in certain circumstances, absolutely. Okay, and we've seen that with roles such as cleaners, teachers, chief executives. How can you determine exactly how much they have earned in terms of their marginal revenue product? Can be tricky. Teamwork also makes it quite tricky as well. There's various other factors. Number 8, discrimination. Okay, yes, there can be discrimination, okay, and be that sexual discrimination, be it disability discrimination, or even ethnicity. Okay, so there can be a degree of discrimination. Of course, there's legislation in place to prevent this sort of thing from happening, but that's not to say that it's 100% effective. Okay, all right, so in our next lesson, we'll get stuck into the monopsony labour market. Okay, thanks guys.